teams from the best of Australia's car building and car tuning workshops to see who can build the toughest street monster. Our teams will go head to head in a final fuel-burning, rubber-shredding competition. In this episode, the Horsepower Factory team takes the Stinger to over 300 rear-wheel kilowatts. We learn how Hayden Performance started and also check out the new paint job on the VK. But first, let's head to Valigrunt and find out what's holding up their build.
We're going back to traditional roots on how cars used to be restored back in the day. Pulling all the rust and paint off basically mechanically, scraping it with old scrapers and stuff like that, using some electrical tools because there was some electrical tools available back in the year, doing the car on the ground like it used to be done when I was a kid and when my father was young. We were going to clean it and just paint around everything, but we opted now to fully rebuild the front end so that everything is all brand new like it should be, really. So that part of the build has extended the date a little bit, but look, it is what it is. We're using 1K acrylic paint on the car, like they were painted back many, many years ago. So the preparation's a little bit different to what you would do with 2-pack. Strip it all back by hand and just paint it with a spray gun. I don't like the white paint on the car, so I've decided that I'm going to paint it back to the original first colour that was there before they put the white on, which was the colours code is called Screamin' Cream. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rub through it and make it look old. The dash we have stripped back to bare steel by hand with a Scotch-Brite pad. We've done 3 coats of undercoat on it just to seal it as well as give it a little bit of a build. Then we're going to hit it with colour. Just dust coat the colour on because we want that metallic fleck to stand. And then we're going to very gently coat the dash in acrylic clear. We've taken all the parts for the car down to Dandenong powder coating. My friend Heath, he tends to do the powder coating in an old traditional sort of way that they used to do it. He preheats the steel to make sure that all the moisture and everything is out of the steel before he puts the powder on. The powder is magnetically attracted to the part, and as the part gets all the powder on it, it starts to melt onto the surface and become completely smooth and beautiful. And it's a really hard textured surface, so it's chip resistant, it lasts a long time. He only uses a quality product at Dandenong powder coating. But Heath also does a lot of custom colours. He does all my obscure, strange colours that I ask him to do. He always rolls his eyes, but in the end of the day, he does it for me and he's always happy to do it.
Yeah, so Ermey's 55 Pontiac Coupe. They've basically stripped the interior out. That's part of what they're doing on the vehicle, and they've brought the seats over. The way the seats are at the moment, they're pretty much beyond repair. They need fully repadding and retrimming. Well, typical to a lot of American cars, when the cars get a bit worn, the seats get a bit worn, they get some cheap aftermarket vinyl covers and stretch them over the top of the original upholstery, which is the first layer we've got to remove, which is the black vinyl. And then under that, it's the original cloth cover, and all the original padding is under that. Shane and Ermey, while they stripped the car, behind the headlining there was a rat's nest and a couple of dead bodies of rats. And while I've been stripping the seats, there's a couple of rat's nests in there as well, and plenty of what they do best. So the first thing I have to do is remove the layers of covering and padding, strip it down to bare frames, then get the frame sandblasted and powder coated, which not only makes them last better, but it quietens the seat frames down, stops any squeaks. It doesn't look too bad, it looks in fairly good condition, it's pretty sound. But there is quite a bit of surface rust down in these bottom sections here. But the sandblasting will clean all that up and it'll be like brand new. Yeah, once I get the seat frames back from the sandblaster, when they're powder coated, I then insulate the springs and then build up the layers of padding to emulate the original. And then mark out the stitch pattern for the style that they're after, which it's a gasser style car they're building. as with most projects, you get deadlines set. The deadline for this job's been set pretty tight, and as usual, upholsterers get left to the last, so I've got to perform a miracle to get it all done in time.
We've had a slight delay with the paint, with the colour. I wasn't really 100% happy with the fleck in the colour, but that's getting sorted out today, and hopefully we'll get the paint today because, well, Chris is ready to do the job, and unfortunately, the delay for him is me at the moment. So we're working hard as we can to get the car done and ready for him, so at least Chris will be a happy fella.
Next up, we find out how Brenton Hayden turned a start-up, overcrowded bedroom business into a corporation.
My earliest memories of cars, I grew up around an uncle that raced on the salt flats. Well, his car was a self-built titanium land speed record car, so powered by a couple of Spitfire engines. So I grew up with my father. He worked at GMH on the back production line. He wasn't heavily into cars, but I always remember a whole heap of photos in his photo album. They gave him a few VK Calais for his wedding. They were brand new off the production line. There's 3 white ones, so I guess it's a little bit nostalgic for me, yeah. My grandfather lived in the backyard and taught me a lot of what I know, and he was quite heavy into it, into Formula 1s and that when I was younger, so. My first car, it was an R31 Skyline Silhouette. Yeah, they were a good car back in the day. Yeah, I think I'll always remember that first car. I've got a big love for Jap cars and a big love for the Holdens and the V8s and that sort of things as well. I guess I grew up around it, so my first car on a full licence was a VK Commodore. So that's where everything started for me in the Commodore scene. So that one was featured in Street Machine Commodores magazine 2005, I think it was.
My earliest memories of cars would actually probably be when I met Brenton. I come from a horse racing family, so when I met him, that was when I first started to learn a bit more about sort of the car scene and all the sorts of modifications that you can do, and that's probably what got me into it.
So over the years, I basically lived week to week to fund my habit of modifying cars, really.
So we started the business about 3 months after our first son was born, and Brenton came home one day and said, I've got an idea. We want to use our savings, you know, $1,000 that we had, and buy a wreck. He said, there's a market there and I think I can really be successful. And
that eventually sort of turned into a business where I had all of our spare bedrooms full with car parts and the garage full with car parts.
But from there, it started out in a little one garage townhouse, and he built it up to now owning 2 shops.
So Hayden Performance Wrecking is where HPW originated from. That's our dismantling side of the business.
I now manage the wrecking division and all of the employees, which has obviously freed up Brenton to pursue his passion with the motorsports section. In our wreckers division, we buy high-end Holden and HSVs, so you know, your V8s, and we're responsible in this business for dismantling, getting those products online so they're easily accessible for everyone in Australia. In terms of putting it all onto our eBay site, both Brenton and I do that.
So if someone's wanting to build a car as we are with the VK and they need a full conversion, we basically have them ready to go on pallets where we can put together what they need and ship it to wherever they're located in the country. We offer a range of services. We do wheels, tyres, lift kits, airbags, anything regarding the suspension side of things, and vehicle accessories.
Ben is a really, really great manager for that motorsports division. It's really flourished under his direction. He's not only very, very skilled at what he does in terms of his mechanical work, but he's also the kind of guy that will go the extra mile for anyone, and he's a really funny guy as well.
My first memory was when my dad brought home his brand new VR Club Sport. Sherbrooke Green, build number 819. Yeah, if I had the opportunity to find that car, I'd grab it for sure. If anyone's got it, let me know.
Brenton as a partner, he's very driven, highly motivated. It's probably, you know, the thing that I love most about him is just how much of a go-getter he is. Over time, I've gotten used to the cars that he's owned. Obviously, as a mum and the voice of reason, owning so many cars doesn't make sense sometimes, but I'm really, really proud of him that he's pursued his passion with such vigour, and he's truly invested in what he's doing, and it really means the world to him. Originally, when Brenton bought his Cadillac, I was not a fan. Over time though, our kids they love it. It's become our family car. I really enjoy just cruising with him and our family in that car. We've made a lot of good memories.
Yeah, so when the car comes back from paint, it's straight into it, getting the running gear in it, getting it wide and getting it driving.
It does put a lot of pressure on our wreckers division. Obviously we're having to pull our guys off cars to go and assist with the build. So it can be a bit stressful here, but I believe that in order to really achieve things, you have to make sacrifices, you have to roll with the punches, and you know, so far our team is so close and tight-knit that we're making it work.
Coming up, the VK gets a shiny new coat.
Since cutting out the tubs, we've fabricated up some new inner wheel tubs, got them all welded in. We bare metaled the rest of the body, uncovering a few bits of rust here and there that needed some attention. The back panel was quite badly rusted, so we ended up cutting that out and welding in a new back panel there. The rear windscreen scuttle panel, that was also rusted out, so we got the panel from Rare Spares, welded that in there. Otherwise, just general rust in all the normal early Commodore spots. So we fixed all of that up, gone over the body, fixed up any ripples, minor imperfections, dents, stuff like that. So the process is we've got it in the booth now, we've got it all masked up, ready to go. It'll go into an etch primer to seal off the steel, and then after that it'll get a high build primer on it. Priming it will show up all the lines, make sure all the lines are nice and straight. We'll then be able to block it down, which will show up any minor ripples, dents, imperfections that we've missed. So that's a good way of just seeing anything that we may have missed to go over again and make sure it's all perfect, nice and straight. And then it'll go in for a final prime and then a final prep for colour. Once we've primed it, it'll get baked out and then we'll start blocking it next week. It's probably a 3-4 day process to get it all blocked down and go over everything, make sure everything's right, ready and ready for a final prime before paint. Brenton from HPW, he's been on our back trying to get it through as soon as possible. Obviously they've got a lot of work to do to it once we're done here, so we're trying to push it through as fast as we can for them. So the car's come back from Donburn Customs up the road. They've done an exceptional job on the paint. They've also finished off the tub work for us. So we're starting to see the colour combo come together really well. The red trim really is highlighted by the Storm Cell grey, so it's really that vision we had in mind for both of those colours to go together. So the tubs have come up really well. They've trimmed out all the original body up to the rails. They've reinstalled all the sheet metal that Donburn Customs made up for us. And they've also pitted with the deadener, as well as the boot area, just to prevent it from any further rust in the future. We were pretty lucky with it. There was that thing in the front of it that they found when they soda blasted it. The rest of the car we were pretty lucky with. The only crucial part we found was the right-hand rear door was pretty rusted out. Other than that, there was a few little rust repairs, but it was a pretty good example of an old car. We're now ready to start on the rear end. That's probably the first and foremost thing to get done. We've got a McDonald's Brothers 4-link. Running a 9-inch diff.
When you're setting up a car with falling, with any suspension, pinion angle changes according to how high or low the vehicle is, power rating, suspension setup, so it all needs to be factored in when we're assembling it.
So a 4-link system basically removes the old coil spring, removes the panhard bar, and we've got a bar that's going to go in between the chassis rails and create new mounts and run a coil over shock, which then mounts to the bottom of the diff.
Just about to tack weld on the lower 4-link bar brackets. Taking all the measurements, we know what angle they need to be at, so we'll tack weld those on, get it under the car, make sure it's all good. Once we know it's all good, fully weld them.
From there, once we've finished off getting that rear end together, we're going to start on the front. We've had a whole heap of parts sent off to the powder coaters, abrasive sanded and back. So that'll come back to us and we'll start fitting up the engine and a lot of the accessories to make sure the fitment's okay for the LS conversion. And then we can pull it all apart and reassemble it with all the detail that we've got.
We've checked the engine, we've done a compression test and everything on it. The next step will be to put a new camshaft, lifters, push rods, all new valve train, as well as timing chain, and also oil pump.
We're a bit under the pump now. I think we've got about 8 weeks to get this thing engineered, registered and complete and driving, ready for the challenges. So we're under the pressure.
When your car is due for its next scheduled oil change, some old oil may remain in your vehicle's engine, which is normal. What happens is the remaining old oil mixes with the new oil, making it look dirty. That is why it's important to use the Blue Chem oil system cleaner. This will lead to reduced fuel consumption, reduced oil consumption, reduced emissions and improved engine compression. After the break, the boys at the Horsepower Factory flex the Kia's muscles.
So far, all we've done is a baseline dyno run and to see what the car made standard. And what we're going to do today is actually retune the ECU and see what sort of power we can get out of a stock standard car. Once we've done that and we've ascertained how much power we can safely get on a standard car, we're then going to see where the restrictions are. So we're going to put some intakes on it and see how much that gives us. And then we'll probably put a catback exhaust on and see if there's any restrictions there and see what sort of gains we get out of that. We finalised the tune for a standard car and we're making 280 kilowatts at the rear wheels, which is a really good gain considering we've done no bolt-ons, everything's standard, just tune only. So we've made an excellent increase. So what we're going to do now is see how much restriction there is in the intakes. So on the Stinger, there's 2 air boxes with the air filters on it, and that's where the air comes into the turbochargers. So by putting high flow intakes onto it, we're not going to have any restriction before the turbos. Same thing as what we would be doing on a Commodore or something like that to get maximum power out.
How'd you go, Marty?
Really good. This thing made 224 kilowatts here when we did the before run.
Okay.
Just with the tune, I was able to get up to 280.
Wow, okay,
Yeah.
that's impressive.
Yeah.
And how'd you go with the air intakes?
It picked up another 7 kilowatts just with the intakes, opening up the air intakes and getting some air in the engine. Yeah.
And the exhaust, how did that come up?
With the exhaust on, we cracked 300.
Awesome, that's a fantastic result.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy with it. Come up awesome.
And so along the way, did you have any challenges, Marty, that you weren't expecting?
Nothing out of the ordinary. With the extra boost we're running, it needed a set of spark plugs with the gaps closed down to help that. But apart from that, no, it was all fairly smooth and good, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's pretty standard. Well, I really look forward to driving this, and I think the next thing we're going to look at is the intercooler and that T-intersection where the 2 turbo outlet pipes join and connect and go through to the intercooler. And the intercooler itself, I think we'll have a look at that as well. But that's a great result. Really looking forward to getting on the road and seeing what it's like.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the suspension holds up with the extra power.
Okay, so the boys have finished doing their upgrades, and we're now at the level where we've got 300 rear wheel kilowatts, and that basically is off doing new cold air intakes, turbo back exhaust, and then custom tuning it. And 300 rear wheel kilowatts in this car feels amazing, and the difference right through the rev range, especially under 3,000 RPM, the car's just so much more responsive, but you get above that 3,000 RPM and the thing just pulls like a train and feels a lot more powerful than 300 rear wheel kilowatts, and I'm sure that again is a little bit to do with the rear suspension, because it just does get a little bit unsettled, especially under full throttle. Wants to crab walk a little bit, so it's certainly something that we need to look at and improve. Brakes still feel good and up to the task, but yeah, what a difference just tune, intakes and exhaust can make, and based off that I'm really looking forward to seeing what intercooler, turbos, you know, what other upgrades might bring to this car. Yeah, what a fantastic result. So yeah, we'll get it back and we'll start on the next lot of upgrades.
Next time on Rides Down Under Workshop Wars, the XR6 Turbo gets a prototype ECU upgrade. Nathan Higgins takes us through his complete range of race hits. And finally, Valigrunt gets the 55 to Chris O'Shea. If you think you've got what it takes to be part of Workshop Wars, contact us for our next season.